We got several different stories from several different media outlets, you guys. It's time for another episode of the World Newsround. Let's go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Reganelite here with another episode of the World's Newsround, where I cover various news stories from outside of the UK. The date and time for this is the 28th of May 2024 at just after 3 p.m. UK time. And we start with out of an article here from Al Jazeera, a really uncomfortable headline here, with the headline of some 45,000 Rwandans flee amid allegations of beheading and burning in Myanmar. UN's Right Chief Volker Turk urges Bangladesh and other countries to provide efficient protection to the latest refugees. And this is really concerning. We know that there's been the clashes, obviously, between rebel groups and whatnot, and the ruling military over the country are still continuing, and not so much. We don't hear a lot about this. This article is actually from a couple of days ago, to be fair. And I did want to catch up on what's been happening in Myanmar. And there doesn't seem to be at the moment, at the time of this, any kind of de-escalation whatsoever. And the military is intent on maintaining its control and its grip on power. However, it is losing this battle within the country. There are lots of other conflicts taking place, but these very allegations of beheading and burning is extremely frightening, to say the least. And I really hope that's not the case, but it's really sad that the country is in the state it's in right now, and nobody really seems to have a direct answer to sorting out this conflict right now. I know, obviously, we have the conflict in Sudan, obviously what's happening in Ukraine, and of course there are other conflicts taking place as well, Gaza as well. But this is one that really doesn't get talked a lot about in the media. So let's read into it, you guys. So, escalating violence in conflict-torn Myanmar. The Rakhine, if I mispronounce any of the names, I do apologise in advance. The Rakhine state has forced another 45,000 minority Rwandans to flee. The United Nations warned amid allegations of beheading, killing and burnings of property. Clashes have rocketed Rakhine state since Arkatin Army AA rebels attacked forces of the ruling military government in November, ending a ceasefire that had largely held since the military coup in 2021. The fighting has caused in the middle of the Muslim minority group, long considered outsiders by the majority Buddhist residents, either from the government or the rebel side. This is once again an example of religious and ethnic cleansing again happening. People not respecting other people's religious beliefs. Why is it always religion that always causes these conflicts? Because of somebody's belief, that they believe in something else, that people feel the need to do this. I just don't understand how people think this is acceptable. It's abhorrent. So this here is an image here. It says here 45,000 Rwandans flee fighting in Myanmar. The escalating violence in Myanmar, Rakhine state, has forced tens of thousands of Rwandas to flee the Budareskis and Malorosco Mustang townships to the Bangladesh border amid reports of beheading, killing and property burnings. So yeah, if you can see here on the map, obviously Bangladesh on the border there on the north, and obviously they tried to flee up the north there. So that's obviously a description of the map there from where Myanmar is, for those who don't know where it is there. And this is obviously on the coast of Rakhine state here, and obviously then you have the whole of Myanmar there in the picture. The AA said it is fighting more autonomously for the ethnic Rakhine population in the state, which is also home to an estimated 600,000 members of the persecuted Rwandan Muslim minority who have chosen to remain in the country. More than 1 million Rwandans have taken shelter in neighbouring Bangladesh after fleeing Rakhine, including hundreds of thousands in 2017 during an earlier crackdown by the military that is now a subject of a United Nations genocide court case. UN rights of a spokeswoman, Elizabeth Charlton, told reporters in Geneva on Friday that tens of thousands of civilians have been displaced in recent days by the fighting in Budatong and Budatang townships. An estimated 45,000 Rwandans have reportedly fled to the area of the Naf River near the border with Bangladesh, seeking protection, she said. And she urged the protection of civilians according to international law. UN's Right Chief Oscar Tost is urging Bangladesh and other countries to provide effective protections of those who are seeking it in line with international law and to ensure international solidarity with Bangladesh is hosting Rwandan refugees in Myanmar, she said. But Al Jazeera's Talal Choutli, reporting from Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, said that with more than 1 million Rohingyas already, sorry if I keep mispronouncing the names, already in the country, the government has been reluctant to take more, leaving the latest refugees stuck on the Myanmar side of the border. James Rodhever, the head of the rights office in Myanmar, team described the horrific situation many were fleeing from. He said his team have received testimonies and seen satellite images, online videos and pictures indicating that the Budaton town have been largely burnt. We have received information indicating that the burning did start on the 17th of May, 2 days after the military had retreated from the town. And the Akatin army claimed to have taken full control of the village. One survivor had described seeing dozens of dead bodies as they fled Budaton, while another said they were among tens of thousands who fled the town only to find themselves blocked by the Akatin army on the west road towards Megatong town. Other survivors said that AA members had abused them and extorted money from them as they tried to make their way to Rwanda villages south of them. In the weeks leading up to the burning of Budaton, Rodolphe Hever said rights office had documented renewed attacks on Rwandan citizens by both AA and the military in northern Ruskis, including through airstrikes. The team had documented at least 4 cases of beheadings, he said, adding that they had determined with high level of confidence that those were carried out by the AA. There have also been previous allegations of Rohingya being used as human shields. Al Jazeera's Choutli said the Rwandans were caught in the middle. They are in a precarious situation, he said, adding that the recent Rwandan refugees who fled Myanmar had told them that both the AA and the military had been trying to recruit them to fight. They are threatened that if they didn't join, their villages would be burned, he said. Well, it's just, yeah, it's a desperate attempt by the military, obviously, to say if people don't join the fight, they're gonna take it, they'll suffer the consequences. And yeah, the Akatin army as well. This is just incredibly awful, horrific. There's just nowhere for them to flee really in that situation, especially when they're cut off. My heart absolutely goes out to all those people. It really is absolutely terrible. And them who are refusing to fight and they're simply just killed just because they refuse to fight. And some of them just don't want a part of it, and they just want to be able to just simply live their lives. They just want to be left in peace, and some people just can't be given that. There needs to be something needs to be done in Myanmar. Something definitely needs to be done because it's pretty a horrific situation that's been taking place there, and we don't talk enough about Myanmar. We don't talk enough about it, and I just hope that something is done soon because it's a pretty distasteful situation to say the least. And yeah, I'm glad the UN has reported this, but do I see something being done about this? No. Do I see any international? We'll probably get some international condemnation, but are any international countries going to step in? No, of course not. It's just it's to others it's not seen as something they're going to get involved in. And the thing is that China's lurking over Myanmar as well, so some of them are not going to step on China's toes as well. So yeah, it's a pretty distasteful situation. But I wanted to cover some. As soon as I saw this, I had to cover it, guys. I know it wasn't comfortable to talk about what they're doing, but it needed to be covered nonetheless, guys. So the next one I've got is what's been happening within the inside Gaza. So this headline is from the Association Press. Is saying we have nothing as Israel attacks Rafah. Palestinians are living in tents and are searching for food. So I will just say this. Obviously, I have a post coming out on Wednesday. It's really. If you haven't, well, it will come out. You may guys see this further a day or two later. I have 5 videos dropping on Rumble Monday to Friday. If you can access Rumble, please do. And check out, I have lots of content regarding Israel and Gaza in lots of different articles and stories regarding what's happening here as well. I will talk about what I've come to my knowledge here. But if you want to check out a bit more in-depth sort of thing, do check out the Rumble page, Rumble channel if you can. If you don't have access to it via Europe, there are ways you can get around it, such as VPNs and whatnot. So you can bypass it if you are blocked out by your country from seeing it. But I really recommend checking out the content on there if you can access the Rumble, because I'm doing lots of videos on Israel and Gaza there. If people want to see more about my thoughts and whatnot there. But just on this, obviously, Israel are still continuing their attacks. Israel are still pressing their attacks in Rafah. Palestinians have shifted so quickly. So I've covered one of the videos I covered is where Palestinians have literally this month alone, majority have shifted from the south of Gaza in Rafah back into the center of the enclave, into the center of Gaza, within a matter of weeks, because they've had no choice because of Israel's attack in Rafah. They have been shifted around just like ants. It's really the way this is being handled is really poorly by Israel, and obviously they don't really, in my opinion, don't care in anywhere near enough about what's happening inside the Gaza Strip. They just want the land for themselves. They really do. And you just look at this situation here; it's really horrible. This is this obviously this screenshot here. I'm just going to read what it says at the bottom before we read the article. It says, Israel's offensive in Rafah has sent nearly 1 million Palestinians fleeing in southern Gaza City and scattered across a wide area. Most have already been displaced multiple times during Israel's nearly 8-month war in Gaza, which is aimed at destroying Hamas, but has devastated the territory and caused what the UN says is near famine. The situation has been worsened by a dramatic plunge in the amount of food, fuel and other supplies reaching the UN and other aid groups to distribute the population. Palestinians have largely been on their own to resettle their families to find the bare essentials. There. So you can just see just how difficult it is for them right now. So this is Deir al-Bashir within the Gaza Strip. The tent camp stretches more than 16 kilometers, 10 miles along the Gaza coast, filling the beach and sprawling into empty lots, fields and town streets. Family dig trenches to use as toilets. Fathers search for food and water, whilst children dig through garbage and wrecked buildings to scrap for food or cardboard for their mothers to burn for cooking. Over the past 3 weeks, Israel's offensive in Rafah has sent nearly 1 million Palestinians fleeing in southern Gaza City and scattered across a wide area, most which has already been displaced multiple times during Israel's nearly 8-month war in Gaza, which is aimed at destroying Hamas, but has devastated the territory and caused what the United Nations says is a near famine. The situation has been worsened by a dramatic plunge in the amount of food, fuel and other supplies reaching the UN and other aid groups to distribute the population. Palestinians have largely been on their own to resettle their families and find the basics for survival. The situation is tragic. You have 20 people in a tent with no clean water, no electricity. We have nothing, said Mohammed Abu Radkin, a school teacher in a tent with his wife, 6 children and other extended family. I can't explain what it feels like living through constant displacement, losing your loved ones, he said. All of this destroyed us mentally. Abu Wading fled Rafah soon after the Israeli assault on the city began on May the 6th, as bombardment neared the house where he was sheltering. He and 3 other families paid $1,000 for donkey carts to take him out the outskirts of Khan Yunis, about 6 kilometers away, where it took a day living outside before they could reassemble the materials to makeshift tents. Next to the tents, they dug a toilet trench, handing blankets and old clothes around it for privacy. Families usually have to buy the wood and tarps for their tents, which can be up to $500, not counting rope nails and the cost of transporting the materials, the humanitarian group Mercy Corps had said. Israeli authorities controlling all entry points into Gaza have been letting greater numbers of private commercial trucks into the territory. The UN and aid workers said more fruit and vegetables are found in markets now, and prices on some have fallen, Palestinians have said. Still, most homeless Palestinians can't afford them. Many in Gaza have not received salaries for months, and their savings are depleting. Even with those who have money in the bank, can't often withdraw because there is very little physical cash in the territory. Many turn to the black market exchanges, and they charge up to 20% to give cash for transfers from bank accounts. This is some of the few buildings. I can see there's actually some buildings here that haven't been knocked down there in the back there. Where is this? This is a tent camp housing Palestinians displaced by Israeli offensive seen in Rafah. This was on the 27th of February. This was on the 27th, so you can see they haven't, at the time, obviously, you can see the Rafah wasn't hit. I can imagine those towers in the back not being there once as they continue the siege in it now. Meanwhile, humanitarian convoys with supplies for the UN and other aid groups to distribute for free have fallen to their near lowest levels in the war, the UN says. Previously, the UN was receiving several hundred trucks a day. The rate has dropped to an average of 53 trucks a day since May the 6th, according to the latest figures from the Humanitarian Office, the OCHA, on Friday. Some 600 trucks a day are needed to stave off starvation, according to USAID. In the past 3 weeks, most of the incoming aid has entered through two crossings from Israel in the northern Gaza via the US-built floating pier, taking deliveries by sea. Two main crossings in the south, Rafah from Egypt and Kerem Shalom from Israel, are either not operating or are largely inaccessible for the UN because of fighting nearby. Israel said it's been letting hundreds of trucks through Kerem Shalom, but the UN has only been able to collect about 170 of them on the Gaza side over the past 3 weeks because it can't reach the crossing. Entry of fuel has fallen about a third of what it was before the Rafah offensive, according to the OCHA. That reduced amount has to be stretched between keeping hospitals, bakeries, water pumps and aid trucks working. The humanitarian group Harina is having difficulty distributing what are able to bring to the people who needs it because there's so little fuel for the trucks, a spokesperson Steve Fake has said. Yeah, so it's not just about the aid itself. This is something I've not talked about enough about, and that's the fuel for these trucks. Not enough fuel for them being able to get in, go to where they need to go to, and then having the fuel they need to go back where they're able to get to as well. So it's entirely possible that some of these trucks may get stranded in Gaza because obviously they don't have the necessary fuel. And the last thing you want is these aid workers to be stuck in the middle of Gaza, stuck somewhere with no fuel and nothing on them. That's really a bad situation for them. Most of those fleeing Rafah poured into a humanitarian zone declared by Israel that is centered on Muskri, a largely barren strip on the coastal land. The zone was expanded north and east to reach the edges of Khan Yunis and the central town of Deir al-Bashir, both of which have also filled with people. As we can see, there is nothing humanitarian about these areas, said Sue Van Meegen, head of operations in Gaza for the Norwegian Refugee Council, which has staff operating in Muskowski. Much of the humanitarian zone has no charity kitchens or food markets, no hospital operating, only a few field hospitals or even smaller medical tents that can't handle emergencies. Only pass out painkillers and antibiotics if they have them. According to testimonies from Mercy Corps, it's just a matter of time before people began to suffer greatly from food insecurity, the group has said. The Mozrowski area are mostly coastal dunes with no water resources or sewage systems, with human waste deposited near the tents and the garbage piling up. Many people suffer from gastrointestinal diseases such as hepatitis and diarrhea, as well as skin allergies and lice, Mercy Corps has said. This is what happens when you are in these makeshift tents and makeshift stuff and makeshift things from some of the dirtiest and filthiest things. You're going to get these diseases. The human body can't handle these kinds of things. One aid worker who fled Rafah said he was lucky that he could afford to rent a house in Deir al-Bashir. You can't walk in the town from all the tents that have arisen, he said, speaking on condition of autonomy because his agency had not authorized him to speak. Many people he sees in the streets are yellow with jaundice or hepatitis, and said the stench is disgusting from the sewage and piles of garbage. Yeah, there's no one's going to clean up the rubbish. It's just going to sit there. It just sits there. Israel said its offensive in Rafah is vital to its war aim of destroying Hamas in Gaza after the group's October 7th attack. in which this militia killed some 1,200 people and abducted around 250 others from southern Israel. Israel's campaign in Gaza, triggered by the attack, has killed some 36,000 people, according to Gaza's health ministry. Aid groups have warned for months that the attack on Rafah will worsen Gaza's humanitarian disaster. So far, Israel's opponents have been short of its planned all-out invasion, though fighting has expanded over the past 3 weeks from eastern parts of Rafah to central districts of the city. A strike Sunday hit a tent camp in the western part of Rafah, causing a large fire and killing at least 45 people, according to health officials. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu acknowledged tragic mistakes have occurred. Yeah, just mistakes. From the Exodus, the assault has caused the satellite virus shot by Planet Labs PBC on May 24th shows dense new tent camps running the length of the coast just north of Rafah to outside Deir al-Bashir. The ramshackle tents and shelters are densely packed in mazes of corrugated metal and plastic sheets, blankets and bedsheets draped over wooden sticks for privacy. Talal Salih Alu-Khalil said he goes out at 6 a.m. every day to find water, usually returning about noon to the tent outside of Khan Yunis, where he and nearly 2 dozen relatives live. His 3 children, aged 4 to 10, are always sick, but he said he has to send them out to collect wood for the cooking fire, though he worries they'll come across unexploded bombs in the wrecked houses. His aging father has trouble moving, so he has to use the bathroom in a bucket. And Adil Kir, who has to regularly pay to transport him to the nearest hospital for kidney dialysis. Wood costs money, water costs money, everything costs money, said his wife, Lina Adil Kashir. She broke down in sobs. I'm afraid I'll wake up one day and I've lost my children, my mother, my husband, my family. Bradley and Keith reporting from Cairo. Associated Press correspondents from those. This is those who have been reporting according to the report. That's just a situation that people within inside Gaza are suffering. Constantly getting shifted around. And they don't even get to stay in that one place as well. And because of how sometimes dramatic they have to move, they can't take everything with them. So they end up leaving things, and then they've got to shift to another place, and then they've got to try and, I don't know, makeshift a home of some sorts of something. This is not how people are supposed to be living. And Israel are consistently saying that they have to do this, like that they need to eliminate Hamas, and it's just like, this is not going to work. I get it. I get, what happened on October the 7th. But like the way Palestinians are being treated in Gaza, it's just nothing short of disgusting. The UNRWA and other charities associations are trying everything they can to get as much aid and that into them, but they're just not getting enough, guys. That's the reality. They're just not getting enough. They're just running out of everything, and there seems to be little to no hope at the moment. And I don't blame the aid workers. I blame Israel. I really do blame Israel and its government, because they have just been so stubborn when it comes to allowing the essentials that people need to get in and out. It's nothing short of horrible, the situation that those within Gaza are going through right now. It really, really is. So guys, while you're here, make sure you hit the like button. We greatly appreciate it, and share this across social media so others are notified of this video, and subscribe. Just doing those things, guys, really does help support the channel. So if you could do any of those 3 things, it really does help me and support the gang behind me, which we'll see in a moment. Carrying on with the conflict, well, not directly the conflict within the Gaza Strip, but I wanted to cover this one because I think it's a very significant one, to say the least. This is from France 24. So Ireland, Norway joined Spain in a historic decision to formally recognise a Palestinian state. So Spain, Ireland and Norway have formally recognised a Palestinian state on Tuesday in what the Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez called a historic decision. The move has been slammed by Israel as a reward for Hamas more than 7 months into the devastating Gaza war. This is what we all want, a 2-state solution between Israel and Palestine in order for this to be done. But what Israel does not in any way, shape or form want this. They want Palestine gone. They want the Gaza Strip gone. They want the land for themselves. We know that's what Israel wants. But the fact that there are nations recognizing Palestine as a state really does throw a bit of a conundrum against Israel. Now, the more nations that start recognizing Palestinian state, the more difficult it's going to be for Israel to continue to do what it is doing. Even if a ceasefire is called, even if or they are able to cleanse, how we say, or push out the Palestinians some way or shape or form out of it, it's still going to leave a very sour taste in the mouth of the world if they are able to do that. But it will be it's going to be what's the right word? It's going to be difficult in terms of their reputation, shall we say. Anyway, let's read more into their decision. So, by joining more than 140 of 193 UN member states that recognise a Palestinian state, Spain, Ireland and Norway say they ought to accelerate efforts to secure a ceasefire in Israel's war with Hamas in Gaza. So this, I know it's a small screen, but here, among the UN's 193 members, 146 countries recognise Palestine's statehood there. So, 146 out of 193 have recognised it there. Interesting. The three European countries believe their initiatives have strong symbolic impact, which is likely to encourage others to follow suit. They also point to Norway's and Spain's historic role in advancing Israel-Palestine peace efforts. In 1991, the two sides sat down together for the first time at the Madrid Peace Conference and paved the way for the 1993 Oslo Accords. This is a historic decision that has a single objective, that Israel and Palestine achieve peace, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said in a televised address on Tuesday before a cabinet meeting that will formally approve the measure. Recognition of the state of Palestine is not only a matter of historic justice, but also an essential requirement if we are all to achieve peace, says Sanchez. The move, he says, was not against anyone, least of all Israel. He said it is the only way to move forward towards the solution that we all recognise as the possible way to achieve a peaceful future, that of a Palestine state living side by side with the state of Israel in peace and security. Sanchez also said the decision reflected Spain's outright rejection of Hamas, which is against the two-state solution, whose October 7th attack led to the Gaza war. So that's in Spain, so I can't read that, apologies. The plans were unveiled last week in a coordinated announcement by the Prime Ministers of the three countries. So Ireland officially recognised a Palestinian state on Tuesday after the government approved a reconciliation of a cabinet meeting on Tuesday morning. The government recognises Palestine as a sovereign and independent state and agreed to establish a full diplomatic relations between Dublin and Ramkilia. The statement said, an ambassador of Ireland to the state of Palestine will be appointed along with a full embassy of Ireland in Ramashishka. Ireland's Prime Minister Simon Harris said the move was about keeping hopes for peace alive. The decision of Ireland is about keeping hope alive. It's about believing in a two-state solution is the only way for Israel and Palestine to live side by side in peace and security, he said in the statement. I call on Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel to listen to the world and stop the humanitarian catastrophe we are seeing in Gaza. Although Slovenia has also started the process of recognising a Palestinian state, the issue has provoked a sharp disagreement within the 27-nation European Union. Ireland and Spain are part of the bloc. Of the 27 EU member states, Sweden, Cyprus, Hungary, the Czech Republic, Poland, Slovakia, Romania, Bulgaria have already recognised a Palestinian state. Malta, like Slovenia, has indicated that it could follow. Britain and Australia said they have considered reconciliation, but France says now is not the time, while Germany joined Israel's staunchest ally, the US, in rejecting an unilateral approach, insisting that a two-state solution can only be achieved through dialogue. So here they have a map here, this helps out. So EU member states and non-EU member states, 11 member states that recognise, the 11 member states that are coloured are the ones that recognise Palestine's statehood. So interesting that Russia recognises their statehood. Turkey, Cyprus, Ukraine, Norway, obviously now Iceland. So it's interesting that I find that run really interesting. For decades, formal reconciliation of a Palestine state has been seen as the endgame of negotiated peace between Israelis and Palestinians. The spiralling bloodshed in Gaza has received call from Palestinians to be given their own state, with a growing number of European countries expressing their desire to do so. Tuesday's move by Spain, Ireland and Norway means the majority of UN's 93 member states will now recognise Palestinian statehood. These include many Middle Eastern, African and Asian countries. The decision by Madrid, Dublin and Oslo has provided a furious response from Israel. On Tuesday, Israel's Foreign Minister Israel Katz accused Sanchez of being part of an incitement to Jewish genocide shortly after the Spanish Prime Minister delivered his televised address to the nation. "You are partner to incitement to the genocide of the Jewish people," Kate wrote in Spanish on X. His post drew parallels between Spanish Prime Minister Yoav Dalask and Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei and Hamas's Gaza chief Yahya Sinwar. That's completely outrageous to make such a case. He is not inciting in any way any kind of genocide of Jewish people. That's completely nonsense. He recognises that Palestinians should be provided a statehood, their own country, their own place to call home, and you want to take that away from them. Diaz has been criticised by Jewish groups following her calls for a free Palestine from the river to the sea. Again, I can't read that, it's in Spanish. On Monday, Katz began taking preliminary punishment measures against Spain, ordering its Jerusalem consulate to stop offering consular service to Palestine in the occupied West Bank. "We will not part with harming Israel's sovereignty and security," Katz said, describing reconciliation of Palestinian statehood as an award to Hamas. On October 7th, Hamas fighters stormed into southern Israel. Yeah, we've read that bit already. We know about all that. So rinse and repeat that last little bit there. But obviously on the... it's very significant, obviously, to me that Ireland, Norway, and Spain are obviously coming together and saying, like, we recognise Palestine as a state. It's a very big, significant thing. It's a massive step in the right direction for the people of Palestine, because they need that international support. They need international support, the Palestine and its people. And I want to make it clear here, like, I do believe Palestine should have its own state without question. There should be a two-state solution between Palestine and Israel. And we know that how difficult it is right now, for any kind of that conversation. But I also know what Israel really wants. And what Israel really wants is the wiping out of Palestine. They want to control everything. And I want to say, no, that's not right. These people have already suffered. These people should be allowed to have their own rights, their own choice and freedoms to do what they want. But they can't be given that, and they're not being given that. And it's not fair in any way, shape or form. So, I'm glad some more nations have stood up and for this, and more countries will in turn to do so. And that people are already angry about what's happening in there. There's lots of protests obviously taking place across many parts of the world, in UK, in America, as well as other Canada and Australia, protests about what's happening, and that the government's not doing enough to condemn Israel and what it's doing in terms of its atrocities inside the Gaza Strip. Like I said, I will try to cover as much as I possibly can within what's happening in the conflict. But I have plenty of content dropping on Rumble this week, so if you haven't already, do check out the content there. And obviously, I will try to drop shorts every now and then of what's happening inside Gaza as well. Excuse me. So the next one I have for you guys, a bit of an off the cuff sort of one, a bit of a different kind of story here. This one is from CNN, but it's showing just how far the technological advances are with technology these days. So China's military shows off a rifle-toting robot dog. I'm not kidding. This is apparently a robot dog that China looks to be using. I'm not going to play the video just because I've just been suffering any potential copyright or whatnot, because I am monetizing this video. But you can see there, obviously, it could prove to be quite a valuable, if used right. Obviously, it could cause quite devastation to other people. So let's read more into this story, guys. So, It looks like something out of a dystopian show Black Mirror, but it's just the latest adaptation of robotics for the modern battlefield. During recent military drills with Cambodia, China's military showed off a robot dog with an automatic rifle mounted on its back, essentially turning men's best electronic friend into a killing machine. It can serve as a new member in our urban combat operations, replacing our human members to conduct reconnaissance and identify the enemies and strike the target. A soldier identified as Chang Wei said in a video from state broadcaster CCTV. The 2-minute video made during the China-Cambodia Golden Dragon 2024 exercise also shows the robot dog walking, hopping, lying down and moving backwards under the control of the remote operator. In one drill, the rifle-firing robot led the infantry out of a simulated building. The later part of the video shows an automatic rifle mounted under a 6-rotor aerial drone, illustrating what the video says is China's variety of intelligence unmanned equipment. Military use of robot dogs and of course small aerial drones is nothing new. A CCTV video from last year highlighted China's rifle-armed electronics canines in a joint exercise involving the Chinese, Cambodian, Lao, Malaysian, Thai and Vietnamese militaries held in China last November. So here's another shot of it here, the robot dog. Yeah, it's you know, I'm thinking like seeing about if you can imagine about 100 of these. Yeah, that's pretty pretty scary. pretty intimidating, I'd say. In 2020, US Air Force demonstrated how it used robotic dogs as one link in its Advanced Battle Management System, that's ABMS, which uses artificial intelligence to rapid data analyze to detect and counter threats to US military assets. And since the Russian invasion of Ukraine in 2022, drones have become commonplace on the battlefield and on the land, sea and air, which cheap remotely controlled vehicles able to spot to knock out his philosophized military machines like tanks and even warships. The lethal abilities of drones seen on Ukraine's battlefield have shown them to be a great equalizers, enabling military forces with small defense budgets to compete with sustainable, better armed and funded enemies. China is one of the world's leading drone exporters, but last year its Commerce Ministry placed export controls on drone technology, citing the need to safeguard national security and interests. Nonetheless, the robotic dog seems to be getting plenty of publicity for the People's Liberation Army, and the dogs have been popping up on China's heavily regulated social media for at least a year. According to the state-run Global Times, the presence of robotic dogs at exercise with foreign militaries indicates an advanced stage of development. Usually, a new equipment will not be brought into a joint exercise with another country, so the robot dogs must have reached a certain level of technical mutiny, Global Times quoted an unnamed expert as saying. It is quite interesting to say the least, this robot dog. It's definitely, you know, we talk about the use of, we've talked in the past when it comes to conflicts now, how AI and technology continues to grow and whatnot, and how much of a difference that can make in battlefields. Obviously, I would not be surprised if they started using this in real combat somewhere at some point. China testing it, perhaps in certain countries of conflict. I can actually see them doing that. I really can see them doing that. If I'm honest, guys, it's just because of who they just to kind of field test, shall we say, these things, but. Without a shadow of a doubt, it is pretty. It's really actually a part of me is actually also quite scared, because you know it means that less military personnel are needed as time goes on, and more use of advanced robots and technology are used to win these battlefield to win combat, as opposed to just the man with a gun in his hand as times continue to change. I don't think we'll ever reach the point before the end of my time that we won't be still having soldiers. But you can see this is a glimpse into the future of the kind of technological warfare that some countries will be going into, that is for sure. But it's an interesting one to say the least. What do you guys think of it? Pingu is incredibly fascinated by the dog. He wants to give it a name, so I'll let you guys decide in the premiere chat what that dog should be named. He wants to have one. He wants to take one home. I said no. He wants to buy one. I was like, no, I don't have the money to do so, Pingu. Ollie is not bothered by it. But Pingu is absolutely in love with this what he called a what? He said it's a cute canine dog. It's not a canine dog. It's a it's a robot dog. Silly thing. Weird. He does say funny things, doesn't he, Pingu? Right, guys, we're going to take a little break from the. I'm going to take a little break here from all the news. I got a little funny video for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is from Foreign Arms. It's a short one here, but I hope you guys enjoy it. This one is called Why would you want to read a book? Yeah, why would you want to read a book?
Morning.
Morning.
What are you doing?
Just reading a book.
A book?
Yeah, a book.
Why?
What do you mean, why?
Why do you have to read a book?
I don't.
But I mean, who asked you to read a book?
No one.
So it's like for an exam or something?
No, I'm reading it by choice.
By choice?
Yes?
A book?
Yes.
Explain it to me again.
I'm reading it for pleasure.
Aegon's reading a book.
Oh, an audiobook.
No, a physical book.
Oh, is it for an exam or something?
No.
Who's making you do it then?
No one is making me read it. I'm doing it for pleasure, of my own free will. Why can't I read a book?
You can, it's just a bit weird.
Oh, yeah, okay, that's a great argument. Very good. Yeah.
Well, what's the book called?
Novel.
Novel?
Yeah, it's a novel.
What's the difference between a novel and a book?
A novel has a narrative.
Narrative?
Yeah, like a story.
Oh, it's a storybook.
Yeah, it's not a storybook. It's something a 5-year-old would read.
Right, what's the novel called then?
Game of Thrones.
So it's not a real book.
Yes, it is a real book.
It's a TV series.
No, it's not a TV. It was a book before it was a TV series. This is completely. Like, there's nothing wrong with reading it. In fact, it's brilliant. You know, it stimulates your brain. It increases your vocabulary, your creativity, your imagination. It prevents cognitive decline. It reduces stress, aids in sleep. I mean, guys, the question shouldn't be why are you reading. The question should be why aren't.
Oh, hey, look, the Wi-Fi's back on.
Oh, thank God.
Oh, that bit right at the end there. Hey, the Wi-Fi's back on. Screw the book. Yeah, that's a lot of people. It's a sad now. A lot of people, they just turn to audiobooks now. Like, I've never been a book reader myself. I've only ever read one book, one proper book, and that was an autobiography of a certain professional wrestler. And I read it from start to finish because I was so fascinated by it. But I wish I had actually just bought the audiobook instead and listened to it, the audio. But I don't read enough books. I'm not really a book person myself. I was given lots of books after I read that first one, and I've tried to read others, but I've just not been able to, me personally. But if you are a book fanatic, good for you. But I'm not a book fanatic myself, me personally. But I say to each to their own on books, guys. I'm just double checking that the piece I've got next week. So this next one, guys, I've covered I've covered a few shorts, obviously, about there's been a lot of floods taking place in parts of the world, and this is just another one to add to that. So this is from African News. Somalia, thousands of students are displaced as floods submerge schools. So there's been quite a few floods in different parts of Africa taking place at the moment. So it's really real struggle right now. I know there's one or two other countries that I've covered as well in the continent where they've had some flooding as well. So this is just more problems in terms of the weather permitted to be able to deal with these issues. So hopefully their governments respectively can get a grip on these as soon as possible. I think Kenya had some flooding as well, if I recall, as well. So yeah, not very good times right now for some of these countries. It's definitely. Did I not? Hold on. I'm just going to. Apologies, I didn't fix that. So right, let me just fix that back. Thank you. Right. So tens of thousands of students in Somalia's central Hydran region have been forced to stay out of schools after heavy rain flooded the institutions. According to Somali education officials, more than 37,000 students in the region in central Somalia are no longer in school due to the impact of recent flooding. The area has been battered by heavy rain, resulting in severe flooding in schools. Parents are worried about how the disruption of education will affect their children's performance in the upcoming national examinations, and the floods also raise concerns of local teachers about the long-term impact on the education. Learning materials have been destroyed and the classrooms have been damaged. It will be very difficult to recover because most of the students have been displaced to faraway locations, and it will be hard to bring them back and resume lessons, said Annie Hashki Dullin, a teacher in Somalia. Parents of the affected students have been appealing to the government to intervene. There is no learning here for the children. There is water everywhere. As parents, we are calling upon the Ministry of Education to establish schools in higher grounds so when the flooding season comes, students can continue their learning activities. Bale Al-Jali, a student parent. Last year, the Somalian government organised special exams after similar instances in flooding disrupted the exam timetable. Officials said they will do all they can to help. So they had in situations last year, and they still haven't resolved the issue, basically. The students in the region always have the worry of not taking part in the examinations exercise, despite hard work and preparation due to the flood havoc. And we hope it will not happen again this year, said Mustafa Osman Omar, Director of Education of the Balawen district in Somalia. Any kind of disruption to kids' education is really, really bad. And the fact that these floods happened last year at these schools, and they've happened again, it's like, hello, like, can you do something? And it's kind of just like they've kind of just set on their laurels on this. We know Somalia has. I know Somalia has lots of problems. I'm fully aware of the issues that Somalia as a nation has. Don't get me wrong. I'm aware they have a lot of issues, especially in terms of piracy and whatnot. I know. But still, it's very frustrating on the kids who are trying to get at least a basic education. And it's been disrupted and the disruption, especially around examination time, by the flooding seasons that are taking place in the country. So they do need to move the education, move them to a higher ground if they're going to keep having these continuous flooding seasons happen. Just that out of nowhere, it really is not ideal for them. And obviously, as well as not just about the schools, but obviously people's homes and whatnots as well in these towns as well will affect the flooding as well. So that's another issue that needs to be addressed as well. Will the government get on top of it? Probably not. But we'll have to wait and see on that. Obviously, I'll try and keep up to date with as much as I possibly can with news outside for you guys. Now, just before I go to the next article, guys, we'll be talking a bit about the conflict in Ukraine. So an interesting article from NBC. But before I do, guys, if you haven't already, please consider becoming a YouTube member. Being a YouTube member really does make a massive difference, and it financially supports me and the work that I do here. It supports me, and it supports the gang behind me of Ollie, Pingu, and Cash Dummy there, the Orb and the Lava Lamp. You're supporting the work that I do here. At the moment, this is my only source of income, so anyone who financially supports me, it really does make a massive difference. That 99p, you can join for just as little as 99p. It may not seem like much, but it really does go a long way to making a difference here. By joining the membership, you get access to custom emojis, and whenever you comment on any of my videos as a YouTube member, you will always get a response from me as well. I do read all the comments on my videos, believe it or not, and I do always try to comment on all any members' videos on there, as well as being a member as well. Whether it's 99p or 2.99, you get access. I always do posts for community. Whenever I do members community posts, I always do them for both members, so you also get those as well. Just an additional little thing to add on top, because I always want to give back, try and give back as much as I can to those who financially support me. If you want to go one step further and be a 2.99 member, which is a Snowflake Corporal level, and thank you to those who are those, you can get early access to additional content. So many people right now will have early access to a lot of my content that's dropping over the next day or two, both shorts and main videos, and they get access to that as a 2.99 membership. So you get early access to content once I've recorded it and uploaded it onto YouTube. Once I leave it for and I usually leave it for about an hour or two before I make it available to members, just pending monetization, so there's no issues regarding ad revenue and whatnot. Just for those don't know, and then it becomes available to you. There's lots of content dropping this week, obviously, with regarding the general election. So anybody who financially supports me in that way, I really do appreciate and thank you. Anyone with any super chats, obviously, This isn't a live stream, but any super chats are also greatly appreciated as well. Other ways you can financially support me is by buying me a coffee. Link is in the description. And by joining me on Patreon as well. You get access to additional content on Patreon. That's there's other content outside of politics. If you join me on there for a small fee, I actually get a bigger cut from Patreon than I do on YouTube. So anyone who joins me on Patreon, I'll say massive thank you to those who have. It really does make a difference. And anyone who has financially or non-support financial support me in any way, shape, or form, thank you very much. It really does mean the world to me and allows me to do the work that I do here. So anyone who's doing any of those things, thank you very, very much. So the next one that I've got for you guys is from NBC News. Their headline is Ukraine urgently needs soldiers, but some men are desperate not to fight. So while volunteers line up to fight Russia at the beginning of the war, manpower shortage is now an issue that could seal Ukraine's fate, even if it regains Western support. Now, I don't know. Now, I am going to probably incline to agree with this to a certain extent. Now, because some people just do not want to get involved in any kinds of war whatsoever. Let's be very clear about this. Sorry, I need to drink some water. So, there will always be people who will not want to pick up a gun, who will not want to fight, who will not want to get in the war zones. There will always be people like that. Many Ukrainians will, no doubt, who are proud to be Ukrainian, proud to be proud to be of their nation, of their color and whatnot. But if you're asking those same people, they're not always going to be willing to want to pick up a gun and point it at somebody and shoot somebody. They're not going to be wanting to do that. Some people just don't want to go anywhere near that kind of thing. Now, obviously, the conscription that they've changed recently has obviously prompted a lot more people to come to sign up and join the fight, basically, as well. Because they are, I do agree with this assessment right here, that Ukraine does desperately need more soldiers, especially as Ukraine's as well. But there's nothing, as I'm aware, there's nothing that's forcing Ukrainians who are living in other countries to come back and fight for their country. There's nothing that's forcing them to do so. So that leaves them with the people that they have already still living in the country. And how are they going to make them join the fight? This is why Ukraine has, in some, as we covered in the deep state map at times, why they have given up territory that they could necessarily hold on to a bit longer. And the reason being is they cannot afford to lose any soldiers. Russia can waste their soldiers. Russia do not care about the government does not care about the lives of its own people. They gladly throw away millions upon hundreds of thousands of soldiers. They're actually nearing, according to Ukrainian officials, we're coming up to the point where nearly 500,000 Russian soldiers have died since this war began. That's how many soldiers are being thrown away at the expense of it. Ukraine does not disclose the amount of Ukrainian soldiers killed. People have asked me for those numbers. I can't give those numbers because Ukraine does not give those numbers. It does give the amount of Russian soldiers that they reportedly killed and the counts that they have, but they do not ever give the Russian numbers. But they do not give away Ukrainian soldier numbers. And my feeling is that they don't do it from a morale point of view, as well as giving information away to the enemy as well. But I totally understand how some people feel. But I also think, a part of me also thinks that Ukraine needs to do more to needs to do something. Because yes, this could be a case of not enough soldiers in the end. And they have lost quite a bit of ground. And every day of fighting, there's always someone somewhere who's going to lose their life on that battlefield for Ukraine. And that's when they're going to need more forces. And they're going to need them from somewhere. And where is a good question. So Ukraine urgently needs new soldiers, but some left uneaten by brutal fighting and intensive conscription efforts are desperately trying to avoid being called up. When you see people in uniform, you panic. You start thinking someone will mobilize you now against your will. A lawyer based in Kiev told NBC News. He did not want his identity known, fearful, like a growing number of men across the country, of being drafted into the army if his name is made public, just as Russia launches a new wave of attacks trying to decisively seize the battle initiative. The 25-year-old has no military experience and just became eligible to be conscripted after Ukraine lowered the age meant to be drafted from 27 to 25 last month. I love my country, he said in a phone interview earlier this month. I donate to the Ukraine army, but unfortunately I am not very prepared to fight on the front lines because I don't have the experience and I'm not properly not morally prepared to kill somebody, even if someone's Russian. And this is I completely understand this man's point of view. Totally understand this point of view. Completely. I can't not say that I totally understand that. I don't have this patriotism of I love my country sort of thing, but I would not want to pick up a gun and shoot someone. I may have played Call of Duty. I may have played countless hours of Call of Duty when I was younger, but I don't want to do it for real. Like, I do not want to ever experience that. But maybe there may come a time in my life where I'm forced to do it, and I don't want to. Then there may come a time in my life where I may be forced against my will to do it. And God help me if I ever am in that situation. But I totally sympathise with his position. Facing the third year of assault from its vast neighbours, Ukraine is running out of men. While volunteers line up to fight at the beginning of the war, that fever has warned a manpower shortage are now issued that could seal Ukraine's fate, even if it regains Western support. So it has taken a series of steps that include passing a new mobilisation law, increasing fines for draft dodging, and withholding consular service from Ukraine's men abroad who lack up-to-date military documents. Measures that some soldiers on the front lines told NBC News they wholeheartedly support. The mobilisation law came into effect earlier this month in a bid to boost Ukraine's depleted ranks, but it also has some men on edge. The mobilisation itself is not even scary, it's more the process of being mobilised, the Kiev lawyer said. You worry that someone will throw you onto the bus one day, take you somewhere, turn off your phone, and you'll be cut off from the world. His fear is exacerbated by videos on Ukrainian social media showing altercations between civilian men and recruitment officers on city streets and in public spaces across the country. So here, this is a picture here. This is recruitment officers regularly stopping Ukrainian men on the country streets and in other public spaces for document checks here. This is to check and verify whether they are eligible or not eligible for recruitment here. So they're literally going out checking for Ukrainian people. This is obviously mostly in the western of Ukraine, obviously, where it's more civilized there, obviously, at the moment. The exact circumstances in many videos are hard to verify, but NBC News geolocated that one spread widely across social media last week. It shows a physical fight between recruitment officers and civilians in the country's second largest city, Kharkiv, to which the Russians launched their new offensive. Oh, that's even happening there. The Territorial Recruitment Center in Kharkiv responded to the video in a statement on Facebook saying the officers were aggressively provoked, which was not shown on the video. One officer was injured, the statement said, and still it added that officers should not have entered into an argument or physical confrontation. NBC News reached out to Ukraine's ground forces about the videos and the efforts they are having on the public, but has not heard back. Ukraine's Ground Forces Commander General Oskar Ploskit said that in March, the out-of-context video and criticism of recruitment officers only provide fodder for the Russian propaganda. And yeah, those kind of videos, the Russian propaganda will basically play into their hands of saying, like this, it will play into Russia's hands, that kind of stuff as well. Still, they have also been feeding the fears that some draft-eligible men who are left apprehensive about venturing into public spaces and are trying to avoid any contact with authorities. Others are looking at a way to illegally escape abroad. Some men ages 18 to 16 are currently barred from leaving the country. Andriy Deskamisko, a spokesperson for Ukraine's border service, said last month that 30 people have died since the beginning of the full-scale invasion trying to cross Ukraine's western borders by traversing dangerous rivers like the Tisza, separating Romania and Ukraine, and the mountains. The efforts are often arranged by unscrupulous traffickers who are paid thousands of dollars for the crossings, the border service has said in other statements. Demishko separately told NBC News that draft dodgers also try to cross illegally at regular checkpoints by using forged documents, trying to bribe border officers, or even hiding inside vehicles as stowaways. For many, there is cohesive dissonance about people want a victory for their country, but in a way that means that they or their loved ones are not conscripted, said Ukrainian political analyst Volodymyr Fresco. Some people try to flee abroad. Some people go into hiding, Fresco said, but the government has no choice, he said, given the situation on the front line. Kiev has been waiting for new US military aid to arrive as Russia has been advancing into the east and launched new offensive in the north, further stretching Ukraine's already limited manpower. Ukraine has been conducting a rolling mobilization to boost its ranks since Russia invaded in February 2022. But the new mobilization law that came into effect earlier this month will mean that all men of military age have to report to draft officers to verify their credentials within 60 days. The apparent goal is to give the Ukrainian government a fuller picture of who can be called up. Men will also have to carry their military registration documents with them at all times. Women are currently not being mobilized, but some have volunteered to join the fight. If some women have been joined, then hopefully they don't have an issue of women stepping up to the plate if they want to. I hope they don't have an issue with women joining the front lines. I really hope they don't. Those who don't comply will face penalties, including restrictions on driving a car. The law underwent many amendments as lawmakers dragged their feet for months trying to pass an unpopular measure. Separately, President Volodymyr Zelensky signed a law earlier this month increasing fines for violating mobilization rules, while another announced some prisoners to sign voluntary contracts with the army, an echo of controversial practice employed by the Kremlin. So this is those who are already in prison and behind bars. Offer them, you join us on the front lines. Could join them on the front lines for certain incentives and whatnot. That's the one way of freeing up the prison service as well, I suppose. Depends what the crimes are as well, though. It's not just the draft-eligible men inside the country whom the Ukrainian government is trying to crack down on. Anton, 39, is working in Germany as a truck driver before the war started. He came back to eastern Ukraine December 21 to see his family after the invasion. He found himself in Russia-occupied territory and managed to escape back to Europe. He's now in Ireland and says he doesn't plan to come back to Ukraine either now or when the war is over. Anthony did not want his last name shared, so he can't be traced by authorities. Said he only feels responsible for the well-being of his family. I don't have anyone else to answer to, he said. A software developer from Kiev told NBC News he left Ukraine for Portugal this spring before the new mobilization law was adopted. The 35-year-old did not want his identity revealed for fear of possible repercussions and would not say whether he left Ukraine illegally. He said he left because he was worried about being mobilized, especially after hearing stories of other men being corroborated by recruitment officers on the street, which he said it doesn't foster a desire to go and defend the country. He said he knows from speaking from friends in the army that the need for more men is dire, but with no military experience, he said it was of better use for Ukraine by donating thousands of dollars monthly to the army and supporting the country's economy with taxes that he paid for abroad, rather than sitting in a trench. If I see that. As a person who works with a high income will be able to get legal exemption for continuing donating, I will immediately return to Ukraine, he said. I get that. And I understand this point. But the other argument is that Ukraine can make here is that what are they supposed to do? Because if they are running out of soldiers, if they're running out of experienced soldiers in the battlefield, what are they supposed to do? They need more bodies. And the problem is that we have a situation here where, French soldiers, other soldiers from other nations, can't get involved because they're not allowed to by their countries. We have. So Ukraine don't have a choice in this situation. We're talking about the very country itself is on the line here. And I'm very, very torn on this because while I really deeply sympathize with this person and anybody else who doesn't want to get conscripted to defend their country, I also completely fully understand Ukraine's need to get more soldiers because nobody else is coming to help them. Yes, they're getting equipment and aid and whatnot from other countries, but what they need is soldiers. They need bodies, and they're not getting that from other countries. If they got that from other countries, this would be a very different story. This would not be happening. But they only have so many bodies their own Ukraine can use from, experience from. So they need more bodies. I get it. I totally understand this. But so a part of me deeply sympathizes with people being forced against their will to do this. But I also understand why Ukraine are doing what they're doing as well. Maybe they can handle this better. Perhaps maybe some of these people who are discussing it with them, I can understand those if those conversations have not gone the right way. I can totally understand that. I can understand that criticism. I can understand the criticism of Ukraine doing that. But we're also playing into Russia propaganda as well, in their hands as well, as saying that do you want to go to war? Do you want to pick up a gun? Do you want to fight? Do you want to kill your own brothers and all that kind of stuff? Like, that kind of propaganda will really work into Russia's hands as well. So I'm kind of torn in two halves on this story, guys. The balance between winning the country and mobilizing enough people for the front was also raised recently by the mayor of Dynamo, one of Ukraine's biggest cities. Boris Fliskos criticized the mobilization process, saying he was running out of multilateral and public transport workers to ensure life can keep running beyond the front lines, including for families of those who are serving. Ukraine's defense ministry told NBC News that information about how many men currently serve in the army and how many it needs to mobilize constitutes a state secret. In December, Zelensky said the military had asked for a call-up of 500,000 more men. Ukraine faces an opponent that can call on far deeper reservists. Russia mobilized 300,000 men in addition to its regular armed forces in the fall of 2022. And it has been conducting a rolling recruitment of contractors that has signed up to more than 100,000 more men since the beginning of the year alone, according to its defense ministry. These are sensitive topics for soldiers on the front line too. The war is ongoing and the country must fight. People need to join the army. There is no other way, said Olejska, a private who joined as a volunteer at the beginning of the war and has been serving since. For months, Ukrainian soldiers have complained to NBC News of exhaustion and uncertainty about whether they can go home. The new mobilization law contains no provisions for demobilization, something that has also scared potential draftees. We are emotionally burnt out, said Olejska, who did not want his last name revealed due to the sensitivity nature of this service. If the country is at war, then the whole country is at war. Oleski, a serving officer in military intelligence, said his comrades find it sad and funny that some Ukrainian men flee the fighting only to die by drowning while trying to escape abroad. What do we think of them? Asked Oskli, who do not want his last name revealed because he was not authorized to speak with the media, and said he was expressing his personal opinion. Someone has to do this job. If everyone runs away, what will happen? What will happen is Ukraine falls. It's as simple as that. Oleski said he understands that not everyone can be a warrior, but there is a need for non-combatant jobs in the army right now, like mechanics. We need a lot of hands, he said. They do need a lot of hands. They do need a lot of hands. I understand. I understand how some people feel about this. I understand the difficulty. It's not easy. It's a very difficult thing to talk about. And I know, and I don't ever want to, I don't ever want to pick up a gun and shoot someone. If I was asked point blank, I don't know. I suppose if we were at war, and the country needed me, and I had absolutely, and maybe I would volunteer. Maybe I would. I don't know. Maybe I would. I don't have this patriotism, but I do care passionately about England. I do care about England. I care about this country. I care about where it's going, and that's why I do what I do. But if I'm asked to pick up a gun if there's absolutely not enough people, and I'm asked to pick up a gun and join the fight, I probably would do it, but I would not want to do it, but I would do it because I think about, because I do care. You know, people have told me about fleeing England because of how bad things are in this country. I'm not doing that. And I understand. I completely understand how some of these Ukrainian men feel. That they don't want to fight. But I also say, put yourself in their shoes. Put yourself in the government's shoes. Stop and think about this, yeah? You're talking about an entire country, your nation, your identity is going to be eviscerated by Russia. What it was, what it is now, is going to cease to exist under Russia. That is the reality of it. And while I sympathize with them, I also completely understand Ukraine's situation. It's a difficult situation, and it's hard. The morale is not strong for the Ukrainian army. It's difficult for them. It's hard for them. They've been going for a long time. These soldiers have been fighting for a long time, and they need some morale boosting. They desperately need some help. They really, really do. Because they're fighting to save their country. And it really, really is important. I'm in two swords of this, guys. I'm torn down the middle. And I'm fascinated to hear what you guys have to say. I'm fascinated to hear what you guys have to say on all the articles that we covered here today on World Newsround. What did you guys think of what we covered today? What do you think, Ollie? Ollie says it's difficult. He says it's difficult. He understands the difficulty behind it. Pingu says everyone should just man up or woman up and fight. That's what Pingu says. Pingu says man or woman, everyone should fight. That's what Pingu says. You know, the freedom and liberty to choose really does matter as well, guys. But what do you guys think? What do you guys make of all the stories that we have covered here on the World Newsround? Let me know what you guys think about them all. We covered the story in Myanmar, talking about Israel and the conflict in Gaza, Ireland, Norway, and Spain recognizing Palestine as a state, China's military dog. What do you guys think of that? And the floods that have taken place within Somalia. Let me know about what you think about all these stories and more in the comments section down below. But just before you go, guys, if you can just do one more thing for me. If you haven't already, please hit the like button. It'd be greatly appreciated. Share it across social media so others are notified of this video. And subscribe, because it really does help support the channel. And if you want to go one step further, financially support me and the work that I do here, you can do so by becoming a YouTube member for as little as 99p, or join me on Rumble, Facebook, or Patreon for exclusive content on those platforms. So thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to catch you all very, very soon.